One of the swim parents inside the swim accelerator reached out to me recently about her son. He's 13, 3 years into competitive swimming, ADHD, works hard, shows up, and generally just wants to get better at the sport. Pretty much an ideal swimmer. She shared something he said after one of my posts about building anchoring routines before races hit him really hard. He said, and I'm going to read it exactly the way he said it on one of our calls. I don't really ever feel locked in at practice. I'm sorry if that is bad, but I don't. I'm just trying to be honest. And I realized he was apologizing. A 13-year-old swimmer apologizing for being honest about something he couldn't feel yet. That stopped me completely. Because that apology told me everything I know about what this kid was carrying and nothing about what was actually wrong with him. So today I want to talk about what locked in actually means, what it doesn't mean, and why the way we teach focus to young swimmers, especially swimmers whose brains work slightly differently, is failing them before they even get behind the blocks. But first, I want to talk to you about the parent in this story because she said something to me in her message that deserves to be heard by every swim parent watching this. But before I get to this, everything I'm about to share comes directly from the work we do inside the Swim Accelerator. It's my online coaching community for competitive swimmers and their parents who show up with them every single day. If your swimmer is struggling with focus, confidence, race nerves, or feeling stuck despite working hard, this is exactly where we start. It's free to join, no credit cards, no algorithms. The link is in the description below. Now, back to the story, because I think it's going to change how you think about focus entirely. This parent told me she's always saying, go have fun before races. Because what can a parent say that won't play with their minds? She talked about how she monitors her facial expressions at meets because she knows her body language affects him as much as her words. She talked about learning to show nothing but happiness when she's watching him swim, giving him big hugs after, regardless of what happens. She figured out all this on her own, and I applaud her for it. And then she said something that really got me. She said she's trying to get her son to identify his own cues and focuses on his own, versus waiting for her to tell him what they should be. That's not an average swim parent. That's a parent who has done the work. And yet her son still can't find the feeling of being locked in. Here's the thing. I want every parent watching this to understand. That's not failure. That's not your fault. It's not her fault. That's a concept that nobody has ever really defined for this young swimmer in a way his brain could actually use. And that's what we're going to fix today. So, what does it actually mean to be locked in? Lots of coaches throw this term around. Lock in before this race, lock in for this set. Let's lock in today, guys. I've said it. The problem is the phrase itself. When swimmers hear the term locked in, they picture what they've seen on television. Michael Phelps standing behind the blocks, headphones on, staring down the lane like the rest of the world doesn't even exist. Complete stillness, complete silence inside. And if that's the benchmark, many swimmers will never feel it, especially young swimmers, especially swimmers with ADHD, whose brains are wired to be constantly scanning the environment for new information. So they try to feel something that doesn't match that picture. It doesn't arrive. And they assume something is wrong with them. Here's the truth. Locked in doesn't mean your mind goes quiet. It doesn't mean the crowd disappears. It doesn't mean you stop feeling nervous or distracted or even aware of the swimmer next to you. Locked in just means you have one thing to hold on to, one cue, one feeling, one physical anchor that your brain can return to every time the noise pulls it somewhere else. That's it. Not silence, not stillness, not the absence of everything else. Just one thing that's yours. And here's what I told this swimmer when I explained it to him. I said, you might already have your anchor and you just don't know it yet. Is there something, anything in your life, not just swimming, but anything that helps you feel calm when things feel loud or even chaotic? A song, a movement, a breath, something so small you've never even really noticed that you do it. I told him to watch for it this week, not to force it, just to notice. Maybe it's during his practice that he'll realize. I want to take a moment, though, before we continue, to talk about Michael Phelps again for a second. Not as a motivational story, as a genuinely relevant piece of information for any family navigating ADHD and competitive swimming. Michael Phelps had ADHD. Did you know that? The most decorated Olympic athlete in the sport, 23 gold medals, his brain worked and still works exactly the way this swimmer does. Easily triggered by sound, hard to stay focused in the chaotic environments, constantly pulled towards the next stimulus. His coach, Bob Bowman, didn't try to fix that. He built a system around it. He recognized what Michael needed at the moment. He gave Phelps a pre-race routine so specific and so rehearsed that by the time Michael got behind the blocks, his brain had a track to run on. The arm swings, the headphones, the visualizations, every piece of it served one purpose, giving a brain that naturally scatters something structured and familiar to hold on to. That system didn't silence Michael's ADHD, it worked with it. And that distinction, working with how a brain actually functions instead of fighting it or trying to change it, is what changes everything for a swimmer like the one in the story. ADHD is not a limitation in competitive swimming. It can actually be an advantage. The same brain that struggles to sustain focus in the classroom is often the brain that can hyperfocus under pressure when the environment is structured correctly. The job isn't to fix the brain. The job is to build the right structure around it. That's what an anchor does. That's what a pre-race routine does. That's what we work on inside the Swim Accelerator every single week. So let me give you something practical. Whether your swimmer has ADHD or not, because this applies to every competitive swimmer at every level. Building an anchor is a 3-step process and none of it happens behind the blocks. Step 1 is finding it. The anchor has to be personal. It can't be borrowed from someone else. I spent years as a young swimmer trying to copy what Olympians did behind the blocks. The stare downs, the arm swings, the rituals you see all the time. None of it worked because none of it was mine. The anchor comes from paying attention to moments in your swimmer's life, not just at the swimming pool, but where they feel calm, where they feel most themselves. That calmness, that readiness, it might be when they listen to a song. It might be a physical movement. It might be a word they repeat quietly to themselves. They might not even realize they do it. It might be something so small as a specific way they shake out their hands. Ask your swimmer this week, not before a race, not at a meet, just in a quiet moment. Is there anything that helps you feel calm when things feel loud? Let them sit with that. Don't fill in the silence. The answer they find has to come from them because that will be 10 times more powerful than any answer you can give them. Step two is pairing it. Once your swimmer identifies something, even something small and uncertain, start using it deliberately in practice. Not just at a meet, in the middle of the hardest sets they've ever had. When fatigue hits and this focus starts to slip. In the moment right before a time trial, the brain builds the connections through repetition. Every time the anchor fires in a high pressure practice moment, the neural pathway between the cue and the mental state gets stronger. By the time a big meet arrives, the anchor isn't something your swimmer has to remember, it fires automatically. Finally, you want to own it. This is the most important part that people often skip. The anchor only becomes truly powerful when it stops being a technique and starts being an identity statement. Not, I do this thing before races, but this is who I am when it matters most. When the swimmer's anchor becomes part of who they see themselves as a competitor, that's when it locks in and stops being something that they're trying to feel and starts being something they simply are. They simply do. Much like my anchor, I had no control over it. Once I developed what my anchor was, which was a twitch in my middle finger, it became part of who I was every time I stepped behind the block, every time the pressure mounted before a race, or even in a hard swim practice. That twitch would come back. I want to close with something specifically for the parents watching this, because I think parents carry more guilt about this than they should. The parent in this story was already doing almost everything right. They go have fun before races, the neutral face in the stands, the hug regardless of the results, the conversations in the car on the way to practice where there are no distractions and no eye contact, and somehow the real things get said. She was already there instinctively. What she couldn't give her son, what no parent can give their child, is that internal experience of feeling ready on their own, in their own body, on their own terms. That has to come from the swimmer. It has to be guided by someone whose job it is to build that specific thing. That's not a criticism of this swim parent. That's just the reality of what coaching is for. Your job as a parent is not to make your swimmer feel locked in. Your job is to make them feel safe enough to find it themselves. And the most powerful thing you can say before a race, I've thought about this a lot and I keep coming back to these same three words. This is yours. Not a reminder about technique, not a split they need to hit, not a quiet word about the competitor next to them. Just this is yours. That permission, that complete release of your own expectations in just three words, is something that's the most powerful coaching your swimmer will receive all day. Because when a swimmer steps behind the block, knowing the person they most want to impress has already let them off the hook, they stop swimming for the stands and they start swimming for themselves. That's where locked in lives. Not in the silence, not in the stillness, in the swimmer who finally feels free enough to just race. If this resonated with you, if you've recognized your swimmer in any part of this story, I want you to know that this is exactly the work we do inside the Swim Accelerator every single week. Not just technique, not just more yardage, the mental frameworks, the anchor building, the pre race rituals, the conversations between coach and swimmer and parent that actually move the needle. It's free to join, no credit cards, no algorithms, no hidden content. Just come in and tell me what your swimmer is struggling with right now. We'll start there. The link is in the description below. And if you have a swimmer who told you they can't lock in, share this video with them because the fact that they've noticed means they already are paying more attention than you know. So until next time, I'll see you between the laps.